Hello, everybody. I am Julie Altimus with Real Producers Magazine, and we are coming to you live today from Studio USA in Colleyville. And Real Producers is all about connecting, elevating, and inspiring the top 1% to 2% in the entire DFW Metroplex, along with vetted business partners. Of course, we have exclusive community events and a magazine that goes out monthly, all featuring top 1% to 2% vetted business partners and agents. And today I have with me Mark Karetzski with Movement Mortgage and Ashley Gentry. So thank you both. She is also a top 1% to 2% agent. And so thank you for joining me today. I'm so excited to have you here.
Yay. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. So what I would love to do is to ask each of you, tell our audience who you are and what you do. Let's start with that first.
Yeah, for sure. My name is Mark Karetzski. I guess it all began immigrating from Russia to Boston in 1999 when I was 7. Went to school for economics, started out in the mortgage industry at 21 and haven't looked back since.
21 in the mortgage industry?
I know, yeah.
He looks good for 54, doesn't he?
He does.
Yeah.
He does. 21. Well, I want to hear a little bit more about that whole coming over here, how old you were. Well, you just mentioned that, but just was there culture shock? Was there some kind of adaptive things that you had to go through?
There definitely were. I mean, in Russia, it was literally, we moved 7 days before my 7th birthday. And about 2 weeks before then, my parents looked down at me at the kitchen table and they were like, hey, we're moving to America. And so literally like 2 weeks later, we were in America, lived in a project. We went from literally like, I was the only white person in my project that we lived in. And I mean, ever since then, my parents just kind of moved their way up through life and eventually got ourselves into Newton, which was a really good school district and really set me up for college from there.
Where is Newton?
Newton's like 15 minutes outside of Boston.
Okay.
It's where like Joe Rogan's from. It's where a lot of like actors.
Oh, greatness.
You don't have the Boston accent.
I don't have the Boston accent. I don't have the Russian accent.
You should see him like speak Russian though on the spot when you're walking by and you're like, wait a second, what are we doing here?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Give me something.
Привет, меня зовут Марк.
I
It's just my name is Mark.
don't know what you said, but I was just like,
I love
you
it.
know,
Yeah.
whatever. My name is Mark. I love it.
Yeah.
So then you moved from Boston to Dallas. When?
Well, so actually I started in the mortgage industry in Maryland, DC area from 2014 to 2018. And then I made the big jump over to Dallas and really went out on my own. I started in the mortgage industry, like I said earlier, but I was on the refinance side of the business. And so we had helped about 200 veteran families take advantage of their veteran financing. And it was really time for me to take that next step and venture out on my own and build my own business. And I saw Dallas and said, this is where I got to build it.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Were there challenges that came with that?
Of course. I was licensed in 23 states except for Texas. I had done 200 refinance transactions. I had done one purchase transaction that was for a former coworker that left the mortgage industry who used a Redfin agent that I never spoke to. So I came out here. I said, I'm going to be a retail loan officer. I'm going to be primarily referral based and from real estate agents. And I thought I could just figure it out. And very quickly fell flat on my face and actually had to go out and figure it out. And so now 6 years later, I am 100% referral based, primarily from the real estate community. But now that I've built really my sphere of network here in Dallas, starting to get a lot more just from my own personal friends and past client referrals.
So in 6 years, you go from falling flat on your face to where you are today.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big jump. So talk to me about that journey and about that process, and why do you think you got where you are today within 6 years? Because that's a pretty fast track record.
Yeah, I don't like to do things slowly. Really like to peel the Band-Aid off and just jump in and go full speed ahead. I always say the only way I know anything is by really just jumping in and trying to break it. And if it doesn't break, then I know it works. And so just doing that as quickly as possible. Really, I mean, it all came down to from the very beginning mindset. I came out here, I was 26, 27. I had some good successful years in the business. And all of a sudden, like, I knew nobody. Nobody knew me. And how are you going to generate referrals from people that don't know you? It's just an entire learning curve that I had to go through to really figure out what is my value proposition for a real estate agent? What does that relationship actually look like? What is what is going to distinguish me and what is going to be my unique value proposition as opposed to any other loan officer. And that's just a trial and error and just an experience-led experience.
How did you meet people?
I started out doing a lot of networking events.
Mm-hmm.
I very quickly realized that a lot of the people that go to real estate events outside of real producers are not actually producing.
Oh, I'm so glad you said outside of real producers.
Well, and that's why I'm here, right? That is what
Wait, hold on.
Because
Wait a second. Didn't we meet at a networking event outside of real producers?
Yeah, but that was thanks to Chris Sullivan. Shout out to you, big guy.
Okay. All right. There we go. Just need to make sure that we talked
And
about
do you two remember, or do you know the story? Actually, we're going to get to, we haven't even introduced Ashley.
Yeah.
We're going to do that. But do you know how or why Real Producers was actually started?
I
Do
do
you remember
not.
the story?
No.
I
It's
will-
been.
I
I've been.
will tell
I've
you.
You
been-
can enlighten us, Julie?
I will tell you the story. So a man named Remington actually came up with the idea of Real Producers. He's in another market, and he was going to these, okay, it's his quote, all right, don't shoot the messenger,
Oh, you're fine.
cheesy real estate events
Mhm.
where he was doing these happy hours. He's like, hey, people just come for the drinks. I mean, why not? But no, I didn't really say that. No, but people were just really come for the drinks.
Yeah.
They really weren't interested in connecting and meeting other people on a deeper level. So he's like, okay, there has to be a different way to do this. Like real estate agents could really have a lot of value by meeting other real estate agents, especially high producing real estate agents, networking with them, increasing your referral business, deepening the relationships. And that especially mattered during 2020 and 2021
Absolutely.
when it really helped during a multiple offer
Mhm.
season. And so, and he thought, and having the best of the best businesses,
Mhm.
networking with the best agents in the, well, we have a metroplex, but in other places it might just be a city,
Yeah.
a small city or a town. So Remington takes the idea to Into Publishing. Into Publishing is the publishing company that houses Real Producers and a few other publications. And they love the idea and they run with it. So now here we are with the top 1% to 2% agents in the metroplex who refer the top businesses from their current relationships. And so it's a beautiful symmetry because already if agents are working with a particular business, they've
Sure.
somewhat been vetted. And obviously your reputation is on the line, Ashley, as an agent. If
Yeah.
you refer so-and-so company and the so-and-so company doesn't deliver and fails your client because referrals matter a lot to you.
They absolutely do.
And you both know that as you grow your business, it becomes more and more of a snowball effect, and that you just have more and more referrals, one after the
Sure.
other, one after the
Yeah.
other, and that matters. So Ashley, for you, I would love it if you would introduce yourself and then tell
Yeah.
everybody who you are, what you do, how you got into the business.
Sure. So I like to consider myself a little Swiss Army knife over here because I'm not just an individual practitioner. I am co-owner of Red Branch Realty, which is an independent brokerage, and I co-own the business with my mom. So second generation realtor right here. My mom actually got licensed after a horrific real estate transaction when we relocated here from the East Coast to Royce City, Texas in 96, and lost about $250,000 from a horrible real estate transaction where the realtor, the title company, the seller, just about everybody was in collusion at that point. And so my mom turned around after we lost and a really grueling battle in court and turned around and said, you know what, I'm going to get licensed because if I can stop this from happening to one other person, then at least I've done my job. So she got licensed when I was 15. And I kind of was her unlicensed assistant from then there on because she's directionally challenged. So I had to sit in the passenger seat with the maps go because we didn't have Google Maps or Waze or anything at that point. And so I really got a first row seat watching somebody who climbed her way from a GED to a top producing rookie in her first year. Success leaves clues.
Nice.
So it was amazing at 15 years old to get that. And then continued to assist her. And then, like any good mother does, wants me to have a better life than she does with, a paycheck and all of these other things. And don't go into real estate. So being the rebellious daughter that I was, I got into real estate. It's worked out now here, going on 20 years later and owning the brokerage. I think it'll be 11 years in October, or actually 12 years in October. And so, it was born out of the idea that we wanted to increase the level of professionalism in what we did, because just as Mark was talking about him living in a project and his parents working their way up to provide more and more for him, he saw the value proposition and putting a roof over your head and what that looks like. And I know personally Mark's story and everything, and I know how passionate he is about helping others obtain home ownership. And mine's kind of evolved from, residential real estate to then helping people build generational wealth. I work with a lot of investors. And so that's kind of snowballed over the past few years, where I still work with people looking for a primary residence, but I also see people that are immigrating from other countries understand that buying earth and buying properties here is the way to build that wealth. And so I work with a lot of individual investors to help support their families and do that. And then opened up a property management company because we weren't busy enough, but
not enough hats.
And so, for us, and it was kind of during COVID where we were helping a lot of our investors, and we have a very concierge type of ecosystem we had created in the acquisition phase or the disposition phase of real estate. And it was that middle piece of really asset management that we were missing. And we were referring to property managers out there that didn't understand the life cycle of an asset. And so I looked at my husband, as any good wife does, and I said, "You're getting licensed because you'd be great at that." And so 2 years ago, I got my husband licensed, who's always been a part of the business in one way or another. And he runs our property management and asset management division. And like a good wife I am, I voluntold him to get on the national. Voluntold.
I like that.
Yeah,
it's a new word.
it is. So
I get voluntold a lot for this one.
Yes, he does too. But for me, also while wearing 42 hats, I am currently the president of Metro Texas Association of Realtors for 2024, and have been on the executive team the last few years. We represent 27,000 realtors and affiliate partners throughout the Metroplex, and we're the fifth largest organization in the country. So while I'm promoting and helping work and establish my business and helping the people that I serve, I also give back and serve to the community of realtors, which is why we love supporting real producers, not only as one myself, but then bringing you guys into this fold as a strategic business partner for MetroTex, because you understand what it's like to make those connections. And the more like attracts like, and we could put all those people in one room, that just really benefits everybody that we're serving in this real estate community to continue to connect and do bigger and better things in real estate.
I agree with that, 100%. I have a question about the name of your brokerage, Red Branch.
Yep.
Does it have a significant meaning?
So it's really funny. When I started a team while I was at KW, my mom was the training and productivity coach at KW Preston Road, and I was starting a team with another agent, and it was like, okay, we want to do something under the KW veil, and red was my favorite color at that point, and all of those things. And so it was like, okay, red, and that's a very powerful color. And we just kind of thought it was more of like branching off and branching off into something bigger and better. And if we can do that. And so when we diluted the team or dissolved the team and then decided to start the independent brokerage a couple years later with my mom, red was still such a powerful color. It was her favorite. She actually taught her first class through Ebby, and it was called the Red Purse. And so it was kind of bringing it full circle. And then when we talked about, this was a family tree that we're starting this business. So I almost think like God planted that seed a couple of years prior to start a team that had that moniker. And now it really means, this is a power for family, and that people that come on board with us, whether it's a client, an affiliated business partner, or another agent, that they're just a branch of this family tree that we've created, and they want to do bigger and better things as well.
I love that.
Yeah.
One of the things about entrepreneurship that I want to talk about is, oftentimes the pie in the sky, everything looks totally fine. People don't understand how you are a top 1%, how you're one of the best mortgage lenders in the DFW Metroplex. They don't see all the things that happened down here in order for you to be up here. And I think it is often missed that we don't talk about the challenges, and the trials, and the things so much. Because if we're just looking honestly at people's social platforms and social media, there's a lot of good things that come on there and mostly are posted there. And then when you see somebody showing up on Facebook or Instagram and they're crying, you're like, oh my gosh, she's losing it. Well, not really. It's just that how most of us are. We just don't post all that stuff on Facebook or Instagram or one of our other platforms.
Well, and when we do, it's our highlight reel, right? Like it's not the real down and gritty and what we're dealing with. It's the most recent win, right?
Yeah. So I want to talk to you both. I want you both to answer this question. And I want you to tell me about, if you could do your businesses all over again from the start, knowing what you know now, what would you tell the audience, and what would you do differently?
Ooh, that's kind of, that's a hard one. We're all believers sitting here, right? And so it's really hard to sit there and say, I would do a ton differently because I wouldn't be here today if I didn't have a lot of the challenges and some of those experiences. I laugh. I met my husband in a biker bar as a bartender. I was doing bartending at night and real estate by day. Had I not made a series of maybe unfortunate choices myself, I wouldn't have been working in the biker bar.
Nice way to put it. Unfortunate choices.
But that was kind of one of those things where you turn around and it's like, I wouldn't have changed a thing because I wouldn't have met my husband in a biker bar, like 13, 14 years ago. And here we are today. And so, I think there's definitely things that I would say from a standpoint of align yourself with the best. Don't look for the fastest solution. Don't look for the bright and shiny object where I think so many people get the squirrel in the disco ball effect. And I want to go where all the important people are. Really, and I was watching Selling Manhattan on Netflix with Ryan Serhant, and he's an interesting character, I'll say that. But he was talking to an agent on the other side today, and they're number 6. Their brokerage is number 6 in New York City. And she was like, well, I'm being wooed by another company, and they're going to pay me up front, and they're going to give me several months of guaranteed income and give me leads. And he said, okay, well, that's fine for the short term. But didn't you want to learn from the best? I saw something in you, and by osmosis, you get to be with me and you get to be greater and better than you could have ever been. So you need to choose which direction you want to go. And his biggest thing was you can work really hard for people to pay attention to you and influence, or you can just work really hard on being great. And then people don't have a choice but to pay attention to you. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's the greatest thing. And if I'm talking to a new agent or an agent that's struggling, I would sit there and say, align yourself with successful people because success leaves clues. We hear that all the time. I don't think we talk enough about that. And especially with what's going on in our industry right now with the national lawsuits and the changes to, how we're approaching the industry. That's what we're telling people right now. Now is the time to align yourself with the best brokerages, the best mentors, the best trainers. Make sure you're in the right rooms with the right people, not those cheesy networking events that are fun or you're downing your sorrows because you just lost a deal. Yeah. Make sure you're sitting there when you're having a bad day. That's when you need to pick up the phone and call somebody like Julie or Mark or somebody else and say, I got kicked in the teeth today. I just need to talk to you for a minute because tomorrow's a new day and I'm going to be great. Yes. So I think that's probably what I would have done was create a more influential circle for myself at a younger age. But I'm doing that now. And the byproduct is just like Mark took about 6 years. I reinvented myself 6 years ago. And it wasn't too long ago that I was trying to sell things that weren't nailed down to the floor just to make ends meet. And here I am. And I think they say the life cycle is about 7 years to see all the hard work pay off, right? I think Gary Vee always talks about that. Like, do the hard for 7 years and let's see what's on the other side of that. So we're on the other side. And to your point, though, I have people come to me all the time, especially through the association. And they're just like, how do you do it? How do you do it? I'm like, let me show you all the bad things. Let me show you all my tax returns. Let me show you all the, I'm finally to a place where my credit score emails me and it's like, your credit score is fantastic. I couldn't get a stick of bubblegum finance 6 years ago, And so there's all that hard work that goes into it. So I just think align yourself with better people and better circumstances will come along.
We have to do that all the time in everything that we do. And I am so blessed that I get to sit down with people on a weekly basis and interview people for Real Producers Magazine and feature some of them in our publication. And I hear a lot of stories, as you can imagine, a lot of different stories, a lot of diverse stories. But I'll tell you one time, a couple of things that you were just talking about. Number one, when I'm interviewing people that are highly successful early in their career, and I ask them, why do you think you are where you are by year 2 or year 3? Oftentimes, not every time, but oftentimes they're on a team that is a high producing team and they're learning from the best of the best. This is like a coach, right? Who takes you by the hand and you just run in a marathon. Yeah. And they already have the systems and the processes in place and you get a taste of that and you understand how that flows. But the other part of that, Ashley, and both of you know this, is just hard work and grit. And there is one person that I interviewed. I've had a few standout interviews, 3 of them actually, of the 550-ish people that I've interviewed so far in just a little over 2 years. There's 3 interviews that really stood out. But one of them, of the 3, was the only time I thought I was going to cry when somebody else was telling the story. They cried, and most times it's them that cry when they're sharing their challenges, their trials, all that. But this guy made me cry almost. I had to put my head down and just try not to, because he was a man from Nepal.
Mhm.
He had been in the United States at the time that I interviewed him, which was last year, for 2 years.
Mhm.
He didn't speak English when he came to the United States.
Mhm.
He had to learn English. And he had dabbled a little bit in real estate in Nepal. I guess that's just when you help family members
Yeah.
buy and sell property, but you're not officially a real
Sure.
estate agent or whatever. And so when he moved here to create a better life with his family. And so he was doing Uber Eats and, warehouse
Yeah.
jobs and whatever, would sleep 1 hour and get up in the morning and go do real estate, attempt to do real estate.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And within 2 years, he was in the top 500.
Wow.
And I asked him, I said, the part that almost made me cry is he was reading his phone. He brought his wife with him because his wife could speak better English than he could.
Yeah.
And he was literally translating from his native English language into English, trying to tell me his testimony off of his phone that he had pre-written out.
That's wonderful.
And I put my head down because I thought I was going to cry. And I was like, there can never, ever, ever be excuses
Mhm.
as to the reason why we
Sure.
can't make things happen. And I asked this guy, I said, tell me why you are where you are within 2 years of your real estate industry, when y'all probably know the statistic better than I do, but it's a very high percentage of realtors that get into the business and fail within a certain amount of years.
87% within 2 years.
See that?
Yeah.
I knew you would know. And so I'm like, why, did you make it? And he said, full of joy, arms out in the air. I talk to everybody. I talk to people at gas station. I talk to everybody. And it was so cute because I actually wound up nominating him as one of the most inspirational stories last year at the ESPY Awards. He was one of the 5. He didn't win, but he was one of the 5. And when the ESPYs were over and the crowd was kind of clearing out and all the things, I spotted him skipping in front of the stage, in front of the ESPY letters, while he had someone else filming him. And I'm like, the man is so full of joy.
Yeah.
So full of joy. And he had only been here 2 years. And to hard work, grind, make it happen, grit, all the things. I probably could have only slept an hour in my 20s trying to make that happen.
Yeah, right.
Right now, not ever.
No.
I would fall asleep driving on the street. But, so I think hard work and aligning yourself with the right people. So for you, Mark, I want you to talk to me about, if you could start all over again, is there anything that you would do differently? And what would you tell somebody who maybe has mortgage or lending in the back of their mind, or they're good at numbers and they want to be as successful as you are?
Yeah, I think with the experience comes perspective, but like Ashley was saying, I mean, it's God takes you through this process, and it's on you to really to have those takeaways throughout these moments in our lives. And so, would I change anything? No. How did I do it? What do I credit myself for doing? Really, it's just maintaining humility, but having confidence in yourself and being able to make yourself be the best. You may not be the best today, but if you're learning something new every single day, if you're like that gentleman and you're talking to somebody new every day, you're sharpening your sword, you're putting good out into the world, then the world has no other option but to reciprocate. And so that's ultimately what I did. I looked at everything like a student. I would look at the Ashley Gentrys and say, what is that business like? What are the problems that Ashley or a team leader or a broker has? What do I have? Like, take inventory of who I am and what are like my qualities that I can bring to the table to add fuel to somebody's fire, and then actually proactively doing that and not doing it out of a desire on what can I get back, but like my fraternity motto always was, it's give expecting nothing thereof. And when you're the biggest giver in the room, then ultimately the room reciprocates, right? And so I wouldn't change a thing. I came out here, I literally did not know how to do a purchase transaction, and we've now done close to 500 transactions in the last 6 years.
That's
and so it's just one problem at a time. It's a lot of controlled chaos as you're doing it.
Yes.
And you're spinning a lot of plates.
And you know what you do? You pick up really good new hobbies like pickleball.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, you do.
The gym, having those stress relief things that you do.
Yeah.
I mean, you know my story, right? With 75 hard. I haven't drank now in over 2 years, and it's just we always go to these events, both real producers, outside of real producers. It's always good to meet new people. It's always good to connect with the people I already know, but it is just so common for us to grab a drink, right? And I found myself in the bar line 3 different events in a row saying to myself, I don't want to drink, but this is what we do, right? And it's
Just to have something in your hand, like a little,
Yeah,
what do
like
you
a
call it?
whoopee.
Like a,
It's like a whoopee, like a coping mechanism
yeah,
or whatever. Yeah.
Or you just feel like you have to just
you
have
do.
something
You
in your
do.
hand.
That's the social thing to do.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I just made the decision, right? And so I think it's incumbent on all of us to make that decision. If you're hearing this, you probably feel convicted in one form or fashion. Like, take that, actually listen to it, and do something about it.
I love what you just said. Just make the decision.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
You just have to do it. Just make the decision. And some people want to whine and cry and waller and everything else about where they are and what's happening in the world and whatever their circumstances. But the truth is, you have all the power that you need to just make the decision. But you've got to have obviously deep conviction and connection if you need it to get you out of the place where you are, where you don't want to be.
It's something really important. And Mark's actually the one we had a conversation about, a fellow colleague. And I was just like, I just don't understand why they don't know better after being in the business for a decade. And he said, because they've had year 1 10 times.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so insightful. Good job, Mark. We're like brother and sister at this point. So that's how we talk to each other. But he was absolutely right. Whereas I can sit there and say that 20 years of experience, actually 24 years of experience, if you talk the unlicensed part, has been a compound interest situation for me. And so, you build those foundational blocks and everything else. And I think what I see most of the time, whether it's an affiliate partner or a realtor, and it's probably more so a realtor, it's Groundhog's Day. They're doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And they're having year 1 over and over. And that's when I say, you got to be in bigger rooms. You got to be around other people. And you know what was so finally eye-opening for me, realizing, okay, my rooms that I'm in, I'm now bigger than those rooms, and I got to go find another room, because that often happens when you start that trajectory.
You need to be one of the smallest fish in that room.
100%.
So that you have a lot of room to grow.
Yes. Yeah. Don't stay in the same room either. Don't stay in the same relationships. I think people are so often, they just think that you have to, and I'm not ugly. I am the fiercest, most loyal person to have a relationship with. But once really God puts it on my heart that I've outgrown something or outgrown that relationship, I have to listen to that and realize that I'm being pushed out of a comfort zone because I'm not going to go to that next level, whether it's personally or professionally, if I stay in this season or in this environment. And sometimes you question, it's like, man, I really thought that was going to be a friendship that was going to last a little bit longer than it did. And ultimately you realize, you know what, I would have been really limiting if I had stayed in that friendship because they weren't pushing me to be bigger and better professionally. Because what we do is not a job. This is truly a lifestyle. We impact people's livelihoods and their everyday lives. And we have to understand that everything we do has an impact in our success. And so that's just super important to make sure if you're in those rooms that we're working for a couple of years and now all of a sudden you don't get anything out of it, it's because you're in the wrong room with the wrong people.
That's true.
That or it's the motivation isn't aligned the right way, right? I know I'm an impact-driven person. Everything that if you look at me, anything that I'm doing, it's because I want to try to leave a better, greater impact on everybody that I come across. And when I lean into that, that's where the success follows. But whenever I feel myself getting scarcity mindset or overwhelmed feeling, that's where everything goes back into continuing that unraveling. And so look at your motives, look at the mission, and when you have a clear-cut focus on that, everything else will follow.
I love that. To wrap this up, I want you to tell me, what is the most important thing to you? It could be personal, it could be professional.
I'll start. I think, so much of what we do is I look at the gift that God gave me and my daughter.
Now she's going to cry.
Now I'm going to cry. And I look at her, and everything I do is not just about her. It's about the fact that I want to be for her what I needed at her age.
Yes.
And I turn around, and that's what I really try to do when I see people. And this is a very toxic business that we're in because it's highly stressful, and we get to see the worst of people sometimes. And so what I try to do as often as I can is just lead with empathy. It doesn't mean I'm always nice about it, but I'm empathetic, and I think is why I've continued to be ultra successful in this business during some really challenging times because people are on fire, people are hurting. And so, I look at that and look, my daughter has, nights, here recently where she just cries and she just says, I'm lonely and I want more time with you. And so to split that, and she gets a lot of time with me. But it's one of those things where I've been so intentional with her that she craves that relationship with her mother. And so I take that from a personal side. I have a loving husband. I have an amazing mom and stepfather. We're very close with those relationships, but continuing to foster that. So then I take that mindset from the personal side. My daughter is craving that intentionality and that relationship with me because I pour into her on a daily basis, and that grounds her, and that's important to her. And I really have demonstrated that in my business too, that I want people to look at me, and I am not a transactionally minded, realtor. I'm here to honestly support your goals and objectives, and let's figure out what those are. And when I do that, people can trust me and feel vulnerable. And that translates to, not only being profitable, but really honestly changing the world day by day. And that's what I want to do. I want my daughter to look at me 15 years from now when she's 25 years old and look at me and go, I am so proud of you. And I know the sacrifice that you made. And thank you for continuing to do what you did, even though I asked you to stay home more, because I couldn't be more proud. And look what you've created, not only for me, but the rest of the world. And I know that's how she feels. So I just really, I would, empower everybody to figure out what that why is, lean into it. It's not the same for everybody else, but it's what makes me get up every day in this crazy world and still sit there and say, I'm going to put a cape on. I'm going to try. Today I might cry. Today I might have 2 vodkas. And it might be vodkas in my Stanley Cup. Who knows? But tomorrow I'm going to put that cape on again because somebody needs me. And whether it's my daughter or my husband or my family or a client, I'm going to be there because that's what people need of me.
Yeah, true.
I love that. For me, I mean, it's multifold. I always, whenever I get down on myself or on the business or anything, I always just think back and realize that my grandfather was an orphan from the Nazis marching through Ukraine. And he literally had to start from nothing. And my parents moved out here and I didn't know English. My parents knew British English, but they literally had to restart from the very beginning. Both of them had PhDs and they weren't validated in the US. And so they had to really learn and go through the entire process all over again to just get themselves on their feet. And so who am I to stand in the way of that legacy, right? And so I need to really honor them and their difficult decisions that they made in order to put myself, and I don't have kids yet, but eventually my kids into the position that I expect them to be in. And so I think remembering where I come from is ultimately what then helps drive me towards what I want to be. And what do I want to be? It's just a positive impact on others. I want to be that spotlight and that lighthouse in, more recently than not, pretty dark times, right? And so it's finding different ways to add value to different people. And as long as I'm able to do that, then I can go to sleep comfortably at night.
I think I met you somewhere around 6 years ago. I don't know exactly, but something like that. And I have seen you just blossom into this wonderful young man. I've seen all these changes, just one thing at a time. And not that, I mean, I don't even want to say growing up because then that makes you sound so young.
He has grown up. He is young.
But I know you're young, but I'm not as, I mean, you're not baby, but I'm just saying I've seen so many changes in you. And I don't talk to you every day. I don't even talk to you every month.
But we laugh every time we talk.
Yeah, we laugh every time we talk. But I see change. And like you were talking about carrying the lighthouse, really, that's God's glory, just to be honest.
Okay.
It is. And that's what I see on you. And I love that. And it projects. You don't have to say a word. It just projects. So I'm super proud of you.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you to both of you for coming on today.
Thanks
for taking
having
time out of your
us.
day to sharing your wisdom with the people out there
Of course.
who need to know why you were able to achieve what you achieved in this industry, when this industry has such a high rate of failure. I don't know about mortgage, but real estate for sure. And like you said, a toxic, hard, challenging industry sometimes. And I think people need to know about it. They need to hear about it, but also just to learn a little bit more about you and who you are and what you're all about, and wonderful pickleball players too, I'm sure.
Hey, we're serving the world through pickleball too. So if anybody wants to learn more about pickleball, hit us up. We're at Pickleball Kingdom in Plato almost every day.
Oh my goodness.
So thanks
We're
for
going to have
having
a
us.
league before long.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Julie.